Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Welcome, sensitive souls. How are we all feeling as we head into December month? My heart is so full. As I'm recording this week, I've been journeying in Rosa with so many gorgeous souls in the opening to their healing and their gifts. And oh my goodness, the vulnerability in the group is so beautiful to witness as they unfurl and soften into sharing. And I just love leading journeys of this kind of women. It reminds me of that phrase, and it's so true, the saying that each time women gather in circle, the world heals a little more. And that really touches my heart, because do we need that in the world at the moment with its darkness? Before we dive into this episode, I am so excited to share that we have a journey that's upcoming in January 2024. This is a journey that I've actually already started filling before I've even announced it, so it's likely to fill fast. But if you have been feeling the heaviness in the world at the moment, and maybe you're feeling also that you're here to make a more meaningful difference in the world, perhaps as a healer of others, perhaps even just for healing your family and healing yourself, but you've got this sense of like, I can't. Like there's this kind of sense of like helplessness. It's a journey into learning to heal yourself in the sense of darkness, in your sense of emotional meltdown, your fear of I can't, especially for sensitive women who want to learn to heal themselves. And if it's for you, it's likely that you'll also kind of have this lack of confidence, you'll fear failure, your self-doubt, and you're probably constantly berating yourself as well. So yet you kind of know secretly, if you're going to admit it, that you're here for something bigger and you want to make a difference in the world. You want to open to your feminine power. And by feminine power, I mean that softer power that we've not learned as women who are trying to compete in a masculine, hard power world. This is a journey with what I call archetypal gold, or aurum, the universal symbol of power. So you can check that out at nicolebarton.co.uk/aurum, which is AURUM. The other thing that I'll briefly share that I'm so delighted to be now offering bookings for as well is my Archetypal Soul Readings, which we'll be diving into in this episode because they're all about knowing our soul plan. These readings have also booked up before I could release them, and there are very, very limited spaces for these ones because I'm actually only accepting one booking a month. But if you are feeling called, and maybe listen to the episode first so you can get a bit more clarity, but you can take a look at these at nicolebarton.co.uk/soul reading. Please feel free to reach out if you've got any questions, but for now, let's dive in. On The Secret Witch Show today, I am diving into all things personality profiling, exploring how psychology type tools can be harnessed powerfully for deep healing via self-inquiry and self-illumination. I explain why I believe that we were each born with a unique soul purpose to live out, and how exactly we can reveal the plan and more meaningful purpose that's in store for us via archetypal personality mapping tools, and specifically my uniquely magical archetypal soul readings. In this episode, I explore how archetypal remedies, which is what we work with in this path, are personality profiles that can be mapped out to ascertain our unique soul plan, especially with reference to sensitive souls who were born with healing gifts. I share the 4 layers of our soul plan and how knowing each of these layers and our unique archetypal remedies can support us to learn to heal ourselves rather than outsourcing our healing to others. and also help us to discover our gifts and journey through the layers of wounding in the way of us actualizing our purpose. I also invite you into a simple exercise to begin to reclaim the gifts in our wounds. Let's dive in. Welcome, sensitive souls. I'm so excited for this episode. It's actually magically timed because it was voted for, as ever, by the women in our sisterhood and our community. And of course, at the time, we were exploring Soul Plan in the group. And magically, they then voted for how understanding your personality type can reveal your soul plan. So it feels very synchronistic that we're here talking about this. And yeah, I am going to just enjoy recording this one. I've got some rose essential oil on the go and just really feeling so lit up about this episode. It really is like something I've seen is so core to the work that I'm here to do, is to help women illuminate their soul plans. So I'm super excited, and I would say that this episode is going to be perfect for you if you are feeling a sense of having been born into this life with a deeper purpose than the one you're living. Perhaps you have got a sense that you're here to heal yourself, but maybe you're also having a sense that you're here to heal others, though that's not entirely necessary. Sometimes we don't know that when we're early in the journey. And it's likely overall that you're probably a sensitive soul. Likely also that you feel a little bit lost with the journey of healing yourself and maybe becoming a healer. And you want a clear roadmap of some sort to your healing and to your gifts, and the healing that's required for you to share your gifts in the world as well. And yeah, I'll go more into the sensitivity piece in a little while, but essentially, often women may have come across, when we talk about personality type, they may have come across what we call personality profiling. So you may or may not have worked with or heard of even some other psychological personality type profiling tools. So by that I mean things like gene keys or human design or Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, even in the more mundane world. But essentially, these are all different kinds of personality profiling tools. So when we're talking about how understanding your personality type can reveal your soul plan, really we're talking about the personality profiling, the personality types that are kind of commonly illuminating these such tools. And primarily these tools are really used for what I'd call deep self-illumination. Self-illumination being one of the 8 elements of our archetypal apothecary path, but also quite commonly used as self-inquiry tools, self-illumination tools. And their purpose is to help us understand aspects of our personality that we maybe hadn't seen before. So they'll be like held up for us to see, this is who we are, these are elements of our personality that maybe we'd shamed and shoved into the darkness, never to be seen again, or just hadn't seen for whatever reason. And they often explore kind of our core personality and our gifts, or as I would call it, and I'm going to speak to in this episode, our purpose or gold. And our challenges, which as I will refer to as wounds or shadow potentially as we journey through this episode today. So I just wanted to give a bit of background into that, because if you're listening to this and feeling like, ooh, juicy, like what's this personality type and soul plan stuff, but you're like, well, I don't really understand what a personality type is. I just wanted to outline that first and foremost before we dive into some of the depth. And essentially, the other thing to also know as we begin to dive in is that my archetypal apothecary path, which is a healing modality really for women who are sensitive, maybe burned out, want to heal themselves, and also have this deeper sense that they're here for some more meaningful purpose. Often as a healer, sometimes that can also be as a community nurturer, or it could be something else completely different. But essentially, this path guides women into healing themselves, knowing their gifts, and expressing those gifts into the world. And I always say as well, another piece that's helpful to know about that is that, and it is particularly relevant to this personality type piece, is that this modality that I've created and channeled and tested really with women for the last, well, certainly at least 3 years, is that it contains the wisdom and combines the wisdom of three ancient wisdom bodies of homeopathy, archetypal psychology, and energy healing. So this foundational modality that I've created really stands on ancient legs, is what I'm trying to say, ancient legs of healing modalities. So it's really solidly grounded. And one of the things that's helpful to know when we talk about personality profiling is about archetypes. So if you've not come across archetypes before, and you may have done, but you may not have done, and this might still be illuminating regardless, is that archetypes are kind of examples of things, examples of certain things. So like models that we can use, again, to understand ourselves. So they're kind of like personality profiles in a way. Really, we kind of use them as like mirrors to our soul, is the way that I often describe it. But the unique combination of archetypal psychology and homeopathy in my modality is what makes it a super potent magical healing modality that's unlike any other, because often, and I talked about this in a post the other day, homeopathic remedies combine often physical aspects as well that are missed in archetypal explorations, which tend to be really more about the mental, emotional, psychological. So I'll share more about homeopathy just briefly, because traditional homeopathic remedies also have personalities. And it wasn't until I journeyed with archetypes that I began to see that homeopathic remedies are essentially archetypes. So they too are personality profiles, archetypes. They're also spirits that can guide us in the work of healing, and that we work with. This is where the energy healing piece comes in, that we're calling in these archetypal remedies as guides, as healing guides. So what I did was, as I began to see all of this, as I journeyed with all of these different modalities very deeply, was that when I combined them and changed the way that I serve them, because I no longer serve homeopathic remedies traditionally, I serve them as like energy healing. When I combined them and changed the way that I serve them, and archetypal remedies were born, there was so much more of a superpower. And so now I serve what I called archetypal remedies. They're like channeled homeopathic remedies as archetypes that are channeled via energy healing rather than taking pills. And this is intentional, because the work that I guide women into is the work of healing themselves. So a lot of times we can kind of outsource to other people our healing innocently, is how we're used to. We've been taught in our culture, you go to a doctor, you get fixed. And that's often the approach that women will take innocently in magical healing and energy healing. Whereas the real true art of healing is actually about us learning the tools to be able to heal ourselves. I'll talk a bit more about that later, but just to share a little bit more about personality patterns. Each of these archetypal remedies I began to see as I worked with them has its own state of health. So it will have mental symptoms, it will have physical symptoms, it will have emotional symptoms, it will have a description of its personality type and its common physical manifestations. So each archetypal remedy, of which there are over 4,000, and really anything can be an archetypal remedy, has its own personality. And there's a whole wisdom body from hundreds of years ago that has been doing this proving of these remedies. And I shared a post the other day about how I can tell people's physicals, because I think the physical aspect of this is really, really important and unique, because like I say, when we work with just traditional archetypes, and if you're not sure quite what I mean by that, I'm really talking to the Jungian archetypes. So things like, a great example would be, everyone can really understand the personality type of the mother. That'd be a great one. She's typically nurturing. There's a real, you can start to really pull together an emotional personality of the mother archetype. But when we work with archetypal remedies, which could be anything. A great example would be rose. It's like a universal symbol, the rose, of soft openness, like opening into full bloom, but also like having spiky thorns in its wounding. So they're essentially they have their own little personalities, and they can also have very physical personalities, these remedies, which traditional archetypes don't. So, for example, and I shared this in a post the other day about how I can tell people's physicals because of the personality type of the remedy they're expressing. For example, phosphorus, archetypal phosphorus, tends to have lots of tonsillitis and chest infections, and each kind of archetypal remedy state or personality has a particular physical personality profile. So the more strange, rare and peculiar symptoms we have, the easier it is often to name our archetypal remedy. So often I can ask you all sorts of weird questions to try and determine which archetypal remedy you are. And I'll speak to that a little bit more later as well. In essence as well, one of the things to know about health and healing, it's also just a bit of a sideline here, but in essence is when we talk about how our personality type can reveal our soul plan, this is helpful to know, is that the lineage of my path is really of the worldview that sickness gets created from a disconnection from soul. And this will have us manifest these particular wounded states of these archetypal remedies as we move through life. So the lineage of my work really believes that there's a quote by James Tyler Kent, I think his name is, which says every cell and tissue in the body holds its soul, or something along those lines. I think I've just really hashed up that quote, but essentially my worldview and the worldview of my path of health is that any manifestation of physical or mental ill health is because we have somewhere disconnected from our soul. And that's really, really helpful to know in terms of what we're about to explore today in this episode. Now, there's also a whole piece I could share here on the law of cure being inside out, aka that our mental health needs to be healed before our physical health can be healed, but that's for another time, but it's helpful to know. But the point is, archetypal remedies have a set of distinct patterns that make our wounds and the healing of them easily identifiable. Essentially, they're like personality types, only they're much cooler, much more awesome, and much more magical because they're also spirit guides. So yeah, that's that in a nutshell. And really what they do is they help us to, as all personality profiles do, work with self-illumination, which, as I mentioned, is one of the 8 elements of our path, in the archetypal apothecary modality. So each layer has its own, we come into life, we have different layers, and I'm going to talk again about that in a minute, but each layer has its own personality profile. Each layer of our wounding has its own personality profile, and we can bring it alive to understand it. It acts as a mirror. So as I was saying, for example, Rose is soft and tender but can be spiky and thorny. There's other archetypes in our path, say for example Gold, which is powerful but can often be helpless in shadow. Luna is magical but can get stuck in logic. She-Wolf is wild but can get stuck in being the good girl, or she can swing into being the rebel as well. So these are just typical examples of just like really simple, like, okay, archetypal Gold is representative of power but can also feel helpless. It just provides you a little bit of a map straight away as to the aspects of your personality and what that means in terms of who you are. And as I worked over the years to guide women into these remedies, I began to see that there were particular remedy relationships, I call them remedy relationships, that we spin off into according to the archetypal remedy we were born as. So let's call this born as layer the first layer of 4 of our archetypal remedy map, so our soul plan. And this first layer is our birth constitution. What that means is that when we were born with a particular personality profile, a particular constitution, our natural makeup, if you like. And that one is quite common for the women who walk this path to be the same. It's typically archetypal phosphorus. It's not always. Sometimes it can be something else. But in essence, depending on what that constitution we were born as is, I began to see that we would then follow specific archetypal remedy patterns that were related to that constitution that we came into the world as. Again, everyone has their different patterns, but there were some similarities. So for sensitive women who are born here with gifts, these women tend to be a particular constitution, as I mentioned, archetypal phosphorus. There could be others, but mainly phosphorus. If you were born as a phosphoric child, you were largely going to be someone who was deeply sensitive to noises, lights, tastes, smells, electricity, other people, other worlds. So like this spiritual aspect of you as a little girl, maybe you heard things or felt things that other people didn't feel. Another one is like I often talk about this, like the labels having to be cut out my clothes because I was so deeply sensitive to the texture of the label running against my skin. I was deeply quiet as well because I was often overwhelmed. But they also tend to be quite magical little girls with big bright eyes, very curious, very open, very like, ooh, into everything. Like, what's this? Like really lovely, excitable. Everybody wants to be phosphorus. It's just a bubbly, bright, effervescent little girl. So they can be very bright, very vibrant. They can really be like shining a light, holding a torch to often lead the way for others. But also in wounding, they can also burn out. So because they're so sensitive, if they don't have their needs met, they can burn out really, really easily. These women tend to be the archetype of the wounded healer, which I've talked about recently as well. They may not yet necessarily be healers themselves, so don't let the word healer confuse you, but they tend to be those women who have come here to earth with a mission to heal themselves, and also likely had typically quite a lot of wounding in their lifetime because of how sensitive they are. So the wounded healer is often kind of the phosphoric type, the archetypal phosphorus, and that tends to be who they were born as. And there's a couple of things here, like that's really, really helpful to know first and foremost from a personality type perspective, because you can see phosphorus has certain needs in the world. She has, the need to meet her deep sensitivity, otherwise she's going to get imbalanced. So just knowing that, if that is you, can be really helpful. And like I say, there are other magical archetypes, so sometimes it can be a different constitution, but it does often tend to be phosphorus. Now when we experience the wounds of the wounded healer, which is common for us if we've come in as that kind of phosphoric constitution, is that we can begin to also see this as being a victim to life. We can experience that as, and that, we'll experience this as deeply traumatic, often as a phosphoric one. So it's completely innocent, completely understandable. But we can also see it as part of our soul's plan. Because if we came here to be phosphoric, we also likely came here to be initiated by wounding first, so that we could go on to be healers and guides to others. Now, or live our purpose. So if you're feeling like, okay, well, I'm a sensitive woman, I'm not sure if I'm here to be a healer, there will be some kind of purpose that you're here to live out that requires you to have gone through that initiation. And that might be that you're here to be a community leader or, something else. There's a whole category of women who I find get drawn to this work but don't necessarily fit into the definition of a healer, but are still very phosphoric and still have gifts that are here to be used in other ways. I'm thinking of the woman who's here to help women get their message out there, who's like, branding or helping women share their stories. There are lots of different gifts that I would class personally as healing, that often women have no idea that that's really what they're doing. So I think that's helpful to illuminate as well. But essentially, this is all part of the soul's plan. And if you're archetypal phosphorus, which many of my women are, it's likely your soul came here to live out a particular set of remedy states, I call them. So personality types, remedy states. And this unique personality type, as I mentioned, has other remedy relationships that they journey in and out of in their lifetime, which are unique to all of us. So this isn't clearly mapped out. It's very bespoke and unique to you and the journey that your soul has chosen to come here to live out in this lifetime. But essentially, it's these remedy relationships that we journey through that provides us with the knowing of our soul plan. And what I mean by a soul plan is that I believe that our souls came here with particular purposes, with a particular journey to make through life. And in essence, our soul plan consists of the different archetypal remedies that we were born here to journey with in this lifetime, for both our healing personally and discovering of our unique gifts and expressing those into the world. And as I said, these are different for everyone, but I started to download information as I was working with women about how these can be mapped using archetypal remedies, developing 4 layers that I saw. There are typically 4 layers of a soul plan, and I tested this with clients, began to see a bit of a formula as to the different layers that are involved in a soul plan with archetypal remedies. So what's really helpful is that my gift as a phosphoric woman who's here to initiate other phosphoric women is that I'm really good at spotting patterns. I'm really good at this because of my neurodivergent brain. And if we have a particularly keen eye for the remedies and know them deeply, which I do, given I've studied them for most of my lifetime, because I was initiated with them very young, from the age of 10, when I burned out in my phosphoric state and went into, I guess you could say, one of my layers of the surface wounds that I'm about to explore. But when we get to know these deeply, we know all sorts of information, and people will show all sorts of information, everything they say and do and how they're being in the world, that really gives away the different personality types that they're here to journey with all the time. So I discovered that I could create a consultation of questions to help me reveal which particular archetypal remedies or personality types people have come here to live out in this lifetime. So let's just break down the layers briefly, because there are 4 archetypal remedy layers of the soul plan. If you imagine, the most helpful visual is we are all like an onion. So each of us is an onion made of different layers. Who we are right at the core of that onion is who we were born as. That's our birth constitution. This is our innocent little girl who we came into the world as. Our soul was born in there. We were really pure. And then over time, layers upon layers of wounding got built around this beautiful, pure core essence of ours. And at this point, we can start to think, oh, that's tragic. And yes, it is. We've had to experience that. There's no taking away from our embodied experience of that wounding. There's no bypassing here. Like, we want to feel, heal, and reveal all of this. And our soul came here for this. It came here to move through these states in life, these archetypal remedy states, these wounds states, these personality type states, if you like. And we do that in a series of stages that can be mapped, because again, certain archetypal remedies have certain remedy relationships. So for example, phosphorus to move into aurum, for example, archetypal aurum. Archetypal aurum being a remedy that I'm actually serving in January, which is one of the layers of this path, because again, I've mapped out the path, the remedies that I serve in this path due to the common remedy relationships I see that phosphorus goes into, though there are other unique remedies for women as well, that are unique to them as well. So there's certain ones that I map out already that are common for women walking this path, but there are also layers that are unique to individuals as well. So there are 4 layers of the soul map, in essence, our soul plan. A soul map's just another word for our soul plan, but it's because this work guides you into seeing a clear map of what your soul plan is. So in essence, this is what I journey with in my Archetypal Soul Reading, and that provides a clear map to your soul of your healing and your gifts, and the healing that's in the way of you living out your gifts. Those 4 layers are your birth constitution. This is what we've already talked about. This is your natural makeup, who you were born as. On top of that, in going back to the onion, the first layer that layers over that birth constitution is typically what I would call your core wound. And within your core wound is where we discover our gift. So the next layer, the second layer of the soul map, of the soul plan, is what I would call your soul remedy layer. Now, this soul remedy is not always experienced as a gift. In fact, it's very unlikely that you will have experienced it as a gift. This is actually your deepest core wound that you have journeyed with in life. Now, we can ask questions around what that is to distinguish what your unique wound, personality type, or your archetypal remedy for that unique wound is. And within that archetypal remedy has gifts. Remember, each archetypal remedy has shadow and gold. So this is where we understand who you were born as and your gifts and your wounds, your challenges. So that's the second layer, is this soul remedy layer. This is your core wound, the deepest wound that has happened to you in this lifetime. And again, you came here to live that out, because my belief is that if you're here to be a healer, that is the one wound that you are actually here to help others heal. And in order to do so, you will need to heal that particular wound first for yourself. And that's really, really powerful piece of information, because many healers will think that their real gift is actually in their tools. And of course, those are valid. Those aren't useless. We don't need to throw them out. Like, they're going to be part of you sharing your gift and the how of you sharing your gift, potentially. But your deepest gift is actually your core wound. It's found in healing that core wound. It's like your own mini heroine's journey. Or not so mini, actually, potentially. If you haven't read The Heroine's Journey, by the way, by Maureen Murdoch, that's also a really powerful book. So going back to the third layer. So that was the second layer, your soul remedy layer. The third layer of archetypal personality types, archetypal remedies, is what I call your surface layers. Now, there are typically more than one, more like 5 different surface layer woundings that are visible when we're looking at these. And so these are kind of surface layer remedies. So these can be things like the ones I talked about already: rose, aurum, gold, she-wolf, and moon. Like, those tend to be some of the surface layers that women will experience. But there are also others that are unique to us as individuals. Again, they can still be patterns of phosphorus, remedy relationships to phosphorus or our constitution, but there will be these particular wounds that we have come here to heal in order to live our gift. So in order to be our soul remedy in the world, in order to shine that gift into the world, there are surface layers that often we hit up against when we begin to step into the journey. These are the personal healing layers that we need to heal in order to live our purpose. That's the third layer. The fourth layer is the ancestral layer. Now, the ancestral layer, again, can have more than one, but these are typically the woundings that have been passed down from our family, from our ancestors, through our lineage. And again, these need healing in order for us to be able to live out our purpose. And so these 4 layers are really, really helpful to know, because each of them really contains lots of different personality types, lots of different archetypal remedies that provide this map to how we get to live out our soul's plan. By healing the ancestral layers, the surface layers, by healing the soul remedy layer, the deepest wound, the core wound, so that we can return to our birth constitution, that beautiful phosphoric, fiery little girl, and shine, because phosphorus is here to shine a torch. She's what's on the end of a match, essentially. So you're here to strike the match and hold the torch and guide others into their own healing, if you're phosphoric. And so this is how understanding your personality type can reveal your soul plan. But it does more than that, because it allows us to begin to heal and actualize our soul gifts, or our purpose, our soul purpose. And that's huge. Like, this body of work that's channeled through me is like so exciting and so huge. And yeah, I'm like deeply, deeply excited for the work that I'm bringing into the world, and super excited to be sharing this episode as well. But in essence, we're always in an archetypal remedy state. It's also helpful to hold it like this. We're always in one of these archetypal remedy states. It can either be a wounded state, one of the surface or ancestral layers, or the core wound layer, or for those of us who've done the work, and just to say, this isn't clear that I'm not clearly all the time in the purity of my soul, but that's another state that we can be in. We can be in that kind of birth constitution, or the healed expression of our soul remedy. And essentially our work as sensitive souls and aspiring healers who want to either heal ourselves or heal others even though that also brings with it its own archetypal remedy states of fear and feels terrifying, which is why I serve the remedies I do, is to learn essentially how to activate our own inner apothecary of these remedies. And we do that through self-illumination as part of one of the 8 elements, but we learn about these remedies and their particular patterns, our unique remedies. It's helpful to have that soul map so that we know what are our particular patterns that need healing. You know, what are the remedies that we're here to work with? And we work with these archetypal remedies in their different personality types as archetypal remedies for self-illumination, for deeper embodiment of the gold of these, because each of the surface layers, and it doesn't just tell you the wounding, it's a bit like the soul remedy layer, the gift and the wound. Each of these wounds will have a gift. So each of these surface layers will also have a gift that we can reclaim through embodiment, through inner child healing, through, you know, working with these archetypes for deep self-healing or soul healing. And by this, I mean the true art of healing. So this is about loving ourselves in the patterns that we've illuminated back to the wholeness of our soul. Not fixing, as many women have often tried to do before they arrive at my door. And again, I completely understand that, because I did that. I tried every quick fix going, and also even interacted with some of the real true healing things. You know, it's the way that we interact with them. So by that I mean, I used to outsource all my healing to what I'd call quick fixes now. And that can be outsourcing to doctors, it can be outsourcing to therapists, it can be outsourcing to tablets and drugs, it can be outsourcing to numbing ourselves with TV, social media, food, alcohol, sex, anything that numbs us, instead of learning to truly heal myself. That's what I did, that's what I see women commonly do. And the invitation here is that this provides a map for how we can truly begin to heal ourselves. I call it, we kind of have visibility of our inner archetypal apothecary, the remedies that we need to work with and learn how to work with in order to heal ourselves. And that's really what the soul plan offers, is a map to truly learn how to heal ourselves. And the way that this works is that we can use or work with or harness these remedies because they're grounded in the universal principle of healing, and we can work with them ourselves. The universal principle of healing is similia similibus. It means like cures like, and what that means is that whatever caused a wound will also cure a wound. So the substance that caused something will fix the symptoms. For example, phosphorus. Phosphorus is what's on the end of a match. It will, when it strikes, it's deeply sensitive and it will go up in flames. It will burn itself out. So if a woman is in the wounding of phosphorus, she can look at phosphorus and work with phosphorus and use it for self-inquiry to see the patterns that have had her burn out. Like cures like. The reflection of phosphorus, the holding up of phosphorus as a mirror, will help you to heal the part of you that is burning out. So holding up a mirror to these aspects of our personalities is what is helpful for us to heal ourselves. And of course, that comes with its challenges. I feel so much love for the women who have the courage to journey into this work, because there can be this real resistance to seeing aspects of our personality. You know, this work is not for everyone. It takes a level of vulnerability. It takes a level of willingness to go in and see what's there and be with truth. It takes courage. But for those who do, it is the deepest, most true healing you can get. And it's not outsourcing. It's about learning how to heal ourselves with energy healing, harnessing archetypal remedies, which heal on a physical, mental, emotional, and soul level. And there's no going to someone else to fix us. It's about us learning how to heal ourselves. And as I said, we're all always moving through these archetypal remedy states in life. And some of the symptoms of archetypal remedy states are hilarious. Like, I can tell you what remedy states you're in or what archetypal constitution you were born as from really ridiculous things. Like, it's some of the questions that I ask in archetypal soul readings are hilarious. It's like, what type of cheese do you like? I always laugh about that because it's like, there's, the fact you love thunderstorms, the fact you can't sleep at a certain time, or the fact that you don't like the dark, or the fact that you suffer from womb symptoms, or the fact that you have had lots of tonsillitis or chest infections as a child, or that you had big eyes. Like, these sorts of things are what is the information to help us learn what personality type we are. And sometimes I can predict, just based on someone's mental emotional state, the sorts of things they have physically suffered with in their life, because this is how detailed these personality profiles are. They truly offer us a map to see who we were born as, who our soul came here to be, and a roadmap to the wounded states that we hold in our bodies, both personal surface wounds and our ancestral wounds that need healing for us to live our purpose. Another great example of this is the other day, a woman shared that she was waking between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. And instantly I know that that indicates a particular remedy state that she's in, a remedy that carries a lot of burden, will wake at this time. It's very archetypal nux vomica. And I can easily pick out the types of, the personality type of this person from the information that we gather, that we begin to understand. This is a part of that particular remedy archetype's personality type. And it's also really key in that person being able to understand that aspect of themselves in order to heal that and live out their true soul plan. And also that them coming there to work with that particular remedy is also, part of their soul plan. It's all perfect. This is exactly what we're here for. And this is the magic of this work. It's really understanding these personalities can help us to directly map who we are, what our gifts are, and the next steps for us in our healing to be able to live our purpose and share our gifts, especially if we've come here to be healers. And healers come here, I believe, with a unique mission on this earth. I believe our souls were born here, as I said, with a unique plan. For women listening to this, perhaps a unique healing purpose, whether that's a healer of others or a community nurturer of some kind, which I still class as healers. And archetypal remedies offer personality types that help us to map that soul plan. And they actually offer more than that, because it's actually much more magical in the way they work. They are literally spirit guides that will reveal to us tenderly and softly, and sometimes not so gently as well, what is needed for our healing on all levels, physical, mental, emotional, soul level. They often do this through initiation, through what I call material for liberation, through healing responses, through giving us all the things that we don't really want, i.e. the wounding, so that we can learn to reclaim the gold from that wounding. And the reason why that is so important, especially for women who are aspiring healers, who feel they have a deeper purpose on this earth than the one that they are living, for those of you who want to discover and express your gifts and actualize your purpose, the reason that's so important is we have to heal ourselves first. That is so deeply important, and that is also what these personality profiles can reveal to us how to do. And just because we experience challenges in that journey, just because sometimes that feels hard and we get material for liberation, often we're taught in our culture that means that that's something we should just stop, we should give up on. But it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that this is not a journey meant for you. What it really means is just that there's more personal healing to do, that there's an archetypal remedy state that you've moved into that wants healing. And your soul map will illuminate that. And I would love to offer you a way to begin to just tenderly step into this And I know that, you know, it's very challenging for you to be able to kind of map out your own archetypal soul remedies, because you're not familiar with what they are and what their symptoms are and what their personalities are. What I would say is that there's an invitation here to see more, and there's an invitation to a tender step here, because one of the pieces of gold from this episode is seeing that these wounds that we carry, these triggers, these places where we're creating all sorts of chaos and distraction and feeling really vulnerable and really wounded and really in pain, like all of these places where we just feel a tenderness and we feel like the world is unfair and life is happening to us. We've all been there. We all journey with this, you know, myself included. Even though I have all this, you know, knowing about it being material for liberation, like I think there's still a real humbleness in that we all are human. We all experience these things. We all experience these wounds, these triggers, these shames, these pieces, this fear, you know, all these emotions that we journey with as humans living life. There's an invitation here to begin to love these parts of ourselves, because as we see them, as we start to see them as just symptoms of a particular archetypal remedy state, these like beautiful signposts to a deeper wisdom, to, you know, the knowing of which archetypal remedy we're here to live out, even just on a more simple basic level, like these signposts of wounding, somewhere in there is a gift. And the more that we can love these aspects of ourselves, the more able we are to find that gift. I think that's the key takeaway for me in this, is like, as we start to understand our wounds, we see that our soul came here to live these wounds out so that we could find the gift in them. And this really is how we start to find the gift on a very basic level. Like, this is the first thing that we need to know in order to really work with our soul plan, really, you know, open to more being revealed around our soul's plan. And the archetypal remedies offer this beautiful, beautiful lens to be able to love the parts of ourselves that we haven't seen. But we can also start to do that on a very basic level by just loving ourselves in these wounds and being open to our next steps, being open to our wounds being gifts or portals to our gifts. That's my invitation for you to take away, is just to begin to bring more love to these wounds, to begin to see them as portals. Our wounds are portals to our soul, to our gifts, to our healing. That feels so nourishing to speak out, actually. So I'm going to leave it there. I have opened up very limited spaces at the moment for women to receive archetypal soul readings. This is something that is new, a new offering. I'm so excited about this. It's currently at a reduced investment, which will be going up. But if you feel the desire, I would say, for clarity around your healing, around your gifts, you want to know your next steps, you're feeling a little bit lost with what your next